All right, everybody, it's about time to get started. My name is Steve Langford. I'm the CIO for the Beaverton School District. Want to welcome you to Evolving Tech Support for Future Ready. Introduce Andrew. Andrew is our manager of user services, and so he has been tasked with, as our organization has a dramatic overhaul with the idea of moving into future ready, we've got to evolve our customer service models. And Andrew's been a great thought leader and done some great work, and I'm excited to be able to introduce him and let him share with you what we've done.
All right. Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
I'm really tempted to just start running back and forth really quick and watching that swivel thing like follow me. It'd be really fun. So I know it's last session of the day, right? Some of you, like me, maybe didn't get a lot of sleep last night. You may be tired. Feel free to stand up. Feel free to stretch at any point, walk around. If it's not the session for you, I won't be insulted if you get up and try a different one. So make yourself comfortable. If you wouldn't mind, if you have an internet-connected device, which I'm sure most of you do, if you wouldn't mind going to this URL down here, I'm going to ask a few questions and see if I can get some feedback from you. So it is https://pollev, so pollev.com/Andrew STENEH841. This is where I wish I could trade names, last names. My last name is Stenjum with all these weird Norwegian letters in it. I wish I could trade names with that guy right there, whose name is John Bell. It would make this URL easier. So it's https://pollev.com/Andrew STENEH841. And it'll be listed when we get to some of the polls as well, in case you're not quite there. Everybody close-ish? All right. I'm going to go, and it'll be back up there when we get to it. Unless anybody hands up, should I stop? You good? Okay, I'm good. So, like Steve said, my name is Andrew Stenjum. I'm the manager of user services for the Beaverton School District. I'm interested to hear from you what describes your position, so what kind of roles you are all in. So here is one of those roles. So the options here, if you're at that website, you should see this question popping up. So IT management leadership, are you in an instructional role, are you in a tech support role, or are you in some other technical role? Looks like some people are changing roles as we speak.
It's technology, it's ever changing.
That's right. We're constantly evolving, right? Our roles are always changing. Interesting. So a good amount of tech support people in the room. So interesting. Sounds like it's. If you don't mind helping your neighbor, if you have the URL, and then we'll keep rolling here. So now I want to ask a sort of different question just to kind of get the temperature of the room. If you had to choose between these three food options, which would you choose? I know food is sort of a sensitive topic after yesterday, but... And don't knock bologna and cheese with sandwich until you've tried it. I grew up on those things. Delicious. This makes me really happy, though. As a person who's become very health conscious, 60% of people choosing broccoli is pretty good. All right. So, like we said, I'm from the Beaverton School District. So Beaverton, located in the state of Oregon, is a southwest suburb of Portland. We have about 41,000 students and about 78 IT staff currently. Nike, Columbia, and Intel headquarters are in Beaverton. Not Intel, but Nike and Columbia. Intel has a large presence next door in Hillsboro, so that has a pretty heavy influence on our community. And we're very proud of our Beaverton School District graduates, and I'll show you why we're particularly proud of some of them. This is Beaverton High School graduate named Ben Crane, who's a PGA golfer, describing his workout routine.
I've been getting a lot of questions lately. How I look so good. How do you get a body that looks like this? A lot of people don't know how tour players work out. And if you have something bottled up inside you, go straight to the snake shaker. If you're angry, use the sludge wand.
You can see why we're so proud of our students. So kind of want to talk about our story in terms of tech support and how we've been evolving over the last couple of years to try to meet the needs that we've had. So kind of starts with an investment of money. Our community invested $680 million in a bond, and a heavy component of that was for technology for use by students. And so that has turned into what has become a one-to-one with Chromebooks from grades 4 through 12 that we've just started implementing this year, as well as shared iPads for those students and shared iPads for grades K through 3. So when we designed our tech support model, it was kind of back around the turn of the century. And that was a time at which we had a small number of computers located in classrooms, like many people did. So we had a small group of centralized tech support staff that supported those computers. But we kept adding more and more stuff without necessarily adding more and more people like most people did. So it started to get a little bit overwhelming for that small centralized staff to be able to maintain those. And then we knew with the stuff that was coming in, all of our one-to-one devices and everything, it just wasn't going to be sustainable for that staff to keep trying to manage that. We felt like having that small centralized staff, you could sort of go one of two directions with how we managed and supported those things. We could let it sort of be the Wild West and let schools fend for themselves and support it how they wanted to, or we could lock things down and manage them centrally. And so we, at the time, made the decision to sort of be the sheriff and manage things centrally as best that we could, and lock them down at that point. So one of the results of that is it sort of made IT into a bottleneck. So when people needed to have things done, they had to come through IT to do those things, and that relied on this small group of people that were there centrally. So if a person is out that day or something, you maybe end up waiting for a week or 2 weeks for something to get done. So looking at a scale of our service level, whether it was all the way from poor all the way to great, I think at that point, just as a result of the lack of human resources, really, our service was probably average to slightly below average before last year. And that was not due to anybody's fault at all. We had this small team of people worked extraordinarily well to try to do as much as they could and tried to essentially kill themselves to do the jobs well, and it just wasn't possible for that small amount of people to do it. For us, over the course of this year, due to what we'll talk about, I think that our service levels moved to being able to provide pretty good service to the schools. And we're hoping now to be able to take the next step and provide great service for them. So I want to talk a little bit about what we've done this year to try to move our support level from sort of that average level to really good service. So like I said, it started with a financial investment in the stuff by the community, but then the district fortunately realized that we also needed to invest in people to be able to support all of these devices that we were getting. So they said that they would be willing to support and invest in some people, and it was kind of up to us to determine what that should mean. Should that be additional central support? Should that be school-based support? What should that look like? And for us, we asked what's going to help the schools most. And it seemed like on-site support was the most obvious way to provide schools with the best help at that point. So interested to hear from all of you who has school-based support in some capacity. So a few different options here. Yes, you have school support and they only do tech support and are hired and managed by IT. Yes, that they only do tech support but they're hired and managed by the school. Yes, tech support, but it's an add-on to their job, so maybe somebody who has a stipend or it's half of their job. Or no, you provide all of your support centrally. Interesting. So not as many people in here doing the stipended thing as I would expect. Anybody formerly have stipended staff and have some of this 48% that has school-based tech support that are managed by IT? Any of you moved to that from a stipended model where teachers or other support staff had a stipend to do tech support? Yeah? Okay. Interesting.
We actually moved from IT that was hired and managed by the school to being managed
By IT?
by IT.
Okay. Recently?
Yeah, last couple of years.
Okay. Which is something we've been definitely discussing a lot. I think it's probably a topic of discussion for many of us. So for us, this on-site support technician we call a computer support technician, or a CST for short. And so what is a CST? We made this video to try to describe it for the schools.
Do you ever wonder who keeps the technology in our schools up and running?
I thought it was the techos.
It's not the custodians.
It never crossed my mind.
That's the job of a CST.
What's a CST?
A CST, or a computer support technician, plays an integral role in supporting the technology in a school. Technology plays an increasing role in today's classroom, and there's a growing need to support this. CSTs work with technology in a wide variety of ways. Here are a few examples.
A CST is somebody who helps us with anything related to our computers and mobile devices. From login problems to crash hard drives, we make sure it runs smoothly.
A CST is someone who helps us with our classroom presentation tools, including projectors, document cameras, and speakers. We encourage staff to embrace technology, and we're there to support them.
My document camera's not working, my projector is not projecting, and my speakers are not making any sound. And I have kids in 5 minutes.
No worries, I'm on it. A CST is someone who helps us with printer setup and troubleshooting. They help us connect printers, change out toner, and unjam printer jams.
A CST is someone who helps us with our technology purchases and planning.
I found really good deals on VHS players for our classrooms. What do you think?
That technology might be a little outdated. How would you feel about an Apple TV or Chromecast?
So, as you can see, CSTs are the go-to people for help with technology in the schools.
So because this position was new to some of the schools, we wanted to send something out to the principals to share with their staff, possibly to let them know who these people were and what they were going to be there for. So that was what that video was for. So kind of part of our thinking was we wanted to not just have sort of a body in a building, but we really wanted to build the idea of like a superhero in the building, somebody who's empowered to really manage the technology in their building and support them in an efficient and quick way. So hopefully by doing that, we would remove that bottleneck and things flowing through IT and allow things to run more smoothly. So at that time, we did have some CST positions for our high schools. So we had a full-time person in the high school, in each of the high schools. We had a half-time person in the middle school who also did state testing as their other part of their job. And our elementary schools had nobody. So we knew that that wasn't sustainable. So again, fortunately, the district said they would invest in some additional positions, which has resulted in now we have a full-time person in each high school, a full-time person in each middle school, and a person in each elementary school who this year had 3 elementary schools, and next year will have 2 elementary schools.
Do they still do the assessment piece?
So they have this year that will stop this coming year. So they will all now be 8 hours and 210-day employees who will no longer do state testing. So, yes, it is excellent. So that resulted in last year 19 new CST positions that we were hiring at one time, which was sort of an unprecedented, wonderful thing and also a challenging thing at the same time. But it was a good opportunity because we got to sort of build it from the ground up a little bit. So we were asking ourselves, how are we going to empower the idea of the superhero CST person? So interested to hear from you your thoughts on what are some things that describe good tech support? What are some qualities that you would expect to find in good tech support systems? Patience is a good one. Communication. Trust. Empathy. Nice. And seeing things like communication, kind, empathy, friendly, I know those things work well in every organization. I think school districts, it's a different ballgame than hiring tech support for a private industry. You know, fitting into an elementary school is much different than fitting into an organization like Nike or Intel or something like that. So communication, some of those soft skills are even more important probably. There's some good responses. So some of the ingredients that we wanted to include in building these superhero CSTs, the first of which would be controlled access. So the idea being, how do we let them manage the stuff in their buildings and be able to give them power to do some of these things, yet without the ability to cause problems for other people in other buildings. So how can we build a sandbox so that they can do that without disrupting other people? So for that, we've leveraged the Casper Suite and SECM and the Google Admin Console to try to delegate those responsibilities so that the devices within their building are managed by them, but not necessarily devices in other buildings. Another shift was using Apple and Google's newer abilities to have things shipped directly to schools to be set up and unboxed rather than receiving them centrally all the time and doing all of the setup centrally. So using back-end processes available so that we can have it set up before it arrives so that they can just unbox it. We can give them directions and they can go through and do the setup at the building itself. Yeah.
Also have CSTs at the central office?
We do not. Good question. We do have field techs, and these were sort of the central support people that we had beforehand that were servicing every school. We still have 4 of those positions that work at a level above the CSDs, and they would serve central office departments as well as sort of a second tier of support for the CSTs.
Quick question.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you mentioned it or not, but what are you supporting?
Oh, good question.
iPads, PCs?
So right now we've always been a pretty heavy Apple district, so I want to say we have 13,000-ish Macs. 12,000 Macs. How many iPads? 12,000-ish?
We just went over 12,000 iPads, so we're about 12,000.
And then we've got a few thousand Windows machines. We've got, now I want to say, we've been pushing out about 26,000 Chromebooks. So kind of a mixture of a lot of different things. That was Stephen Russell, by the way, who's our Apple system administrator, who I really want to make stand up and take a bow and do a dance, but we'll wait till okay. And please feel free, if you have any other questions while we're going, shoot them out there, definitely. So another piece of it is documentation. Having this many people in different places, we had documentation traditionally, but it was kind of all over the place. So we would each create Google Docs, and based on how we name those Google Docs, you may or may not be able to find it. And so we wanted to clean that up in some way. So we built a website and called it CST Central and tried to say, let's put everything that they need to know into this one spot, and including things that they need to know even before they start the job. So we put a section in there for new CSTs and then sent them a link when they were hired and said, your start date is August 25th or whatever it is. Please read through the new CST section before you get here. And it had a bunch of information about their job, what it was that they were going to be doing, how they were going to be doing those things, kind of a checklist of things they could do before they showed up. And then really spent a lot of time in communicating with them, reminding them that this is your one-stop place to go. So when you have questions, go here first, look for your answers here first, and then if you can't find it there, you can look for other solutions. So interested to hear from you guys some solutions that you have for documentation. So documentation for your tech support staff. Some of you, it sounds like, are tech support staff. What are your solutions for that? What things have worked well? What things maybe don't work as well?
We have a knowledge base that we direct the teachers to through our tech request system and stuff to see if it's a question that's been asked before.
Okay.
Get the answer quickly before.
And that's predominantly for your end users, for teachers that... Okay, what about for the tech support staff itself?
No, we all just kind of do it.
Okay. That's kind of how it ends up happening sometimes, but...
We have an internal ticketing system, and so we have internal solutions and then external
Oh, okay.
for end users, but internal for us.
Is it the same system?
Yeah, it's all interconnected, so you can just look at the solutions tab and search for like
Okay. And do you find that the search works well and that people are willing to spend the time searching and looking for things before asking?
Only because it's brand new and the
Okay.
solutions are.
Okay.
So
Right.
now it's pretty.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
We're upgrading our system where we're gonna have a knowledge base, and you will ask, actually, the end user or the teacher will have the option to say, my mouse doesn't work, type that in, and it's gonna prompt them to say, here's 5 or 6 solutions. So we're trying to follow a model where instead of the teacher having to Google it,
Right.
or one of the help desk saying, have you ever Googled that question?
Right.
And try to self-serve at this point seems to be a trend out there,
Mhm.
so we're gonna try to satisfy that.
Sure. Anybody else? And yeah.
We use OneNote
Okay.
for our documentation, and that way the search engine is great. People, the tech staff can search through it, find documents, find information.
Okay. And when all of you have new staff that join, so you say hire a new tech support person, is there a place that you send them with some of that information, or is it more mentoring and learning on the job, or? Yeah? Okay.
I'm with Beaverton Public Schools, and we went from a help desk to a service desk, and we're trying to take bits and pieces of ITIL and bonding and different things. There's no more art than science, but I like what you're doing, and the trouble we have, but what happens when the teacher's down? So when I joined my school district 2 years ago, our help desk didn't answer the phone, so we were kind of known as the help desk. It's a joke. And teachers would email and try to get help, or they would call and leave a message, and then we might respond, and then there was really no triage. So we're digging out of that, changing the perception, and it's working. We're answering the phone, and we're using PMC Remedy Force, and we're changing and gaining trust, but we still don't have a secret ingredient to how we do it quickly.
Right.
And we're starting with service level agreements and trying to say, okay, here's what we do, and if it's a complete building outage, it's this, and this. But it's still, how do we do it quickly?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get to the model where you are, where we have someone in the buildings, and we do that at least at secondary and try it. And we're trying to then do interns to help others in the building.
Okay.
So we're going to start with, 30 at secondary level students who help with us. So the C, we call them the customer service, but we are tech, our teacher librarian, and then these host of students at the secondary level, and then try to replicate that, because we can't hire 19 people.
Right.
But again,
Right.
it's still how do we quickly get out information when we see smoke signals,
Mm-hmm.
things and patterns, then to the teacher who just had one incident, but it really is impacting instruction, and needs to be up
Right.
ASAP.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody get the answer to that? How are they doing it really well?
Well, just one thought that I have about that, because that's something that we've sort of grappled with too a little bit, is like if we had a network outage, for example, how do we communicate that out to the schools, and how do we not have, all these people calling our help desk and saying our network isn't working? And so for us, what's helped is originally we were using Selly, a product called Selly, and having people join up at each school to Selly, so they'd get we would send a text message out then if that happened. We've now transitioned to School Messenger, another program that we're using district-wide, but same type of idea where we can then go, as soon as that happens, we can go type in a quick message, send it out, it'll immediately text it to all of these people out in the building. So then, and then secondly, we, with our help desk calling queue system, we'll put a message up temporarily saying there's a district-wide network outage. Give a little information if you're calling for something. Other than that, please hold in the line. And those 2 things for us have been huge, because the calls just went like this, because immediately everybody knew, oh, there's an outage, so they didn't even bother calling. They could just do an all-call to their staff, and that's helped us, I guess. But go ahead.
How have you got people to actually call your help desk? We have a lot of summers when we find a lot of problems with our
Right.
computers, and no one really calls or tells us about it.
I think partially for us it was because previously that was really their only option, was to call the help desk, and then the help desk was going to deploy somebody to come help them. They didn't have that person in the building. So there's still a mentality of needing to call the help desk from some people to do that. So I don't know totally if it just stems from that. In some ways we're almost trying to shift a little bit away from that now and get people to create tickets instead, so which will then automatically go to the CST that's in their building. But
We've just recently, over the last 6 months,
created a Google Hangouts peer group for all of our techs, and it's been a real helpful item for that. We've got an outage at this building right at the moment.
Right.
Or I have a question about this, I can't find it in the tech wiki, and it gets answered by 17 people.
Right.
Or whoever just happens to be handy right there with their phone. And when it comes to outages, cell data usually works when network
Exactly.
works, so.
And that's a good point, because we've started using Yammer, which I'll talk about in a bit, for the same type of purpose, and that's been really helpful for us as well. Right. Yeah.
Like, I'm from Oregon Trail, here in my district right now.
Nice.
Got a school just a few miles away. But like Monday, we had a print server issue started cropping up. And we knew that by, we're using Hangouts, and the techs were chatting, and I knew it by the time there was a third building that said there was a problem with so-and-so's printer, and then the admin level got that on it and stuff. So that has been, and what we have found out is the calls have really been cut down on stuff like that because we're on it so fast. Because the information is coming in so fast, and we can all see it. I do a centralized thing where I answer the phones, and then the techs are out there in the buildings and stuff. And if I don't have a tech in a building, and sometimes I'll see what's going on, what their schedule is, what they're working on and stuff, see if I can get one there by afternoon or something like that. And we went from 4 years ago when I came into the district, I walked into a room and they said, here's the computers that have come into Central Tech, and it was over 150 computers sitting there not working.
Oh, man.
And then we found out when we got out into the buildings in the summer, I came in the middle of the year, but toward the end of the year, when we got out in the summer into the buildings, there was that many or more in the various buildings that weren't functional and stuff. And getting the people to call or either send an email into our ticketing system, which we're getting a lot, and manning that ticketing system and watching it all day long, and seeing stuff cuts down on the calls tremendously when you're on top of it before most of them have even realized it's happening.
One thing that's it's an interesting thing we've been grappling with, which is the idea of Yammer or Google Hangouts or any of those social media style communication tools, and I'll talk about it in a little bit, but we have some groups available that we communicate out information to people. So like if we're going to change things, we're going to update Firefox on the Mac platform, Stephen posts something to a Yammer group for IT Apple changes. People can go there and see that. One thing that's been interesting with that is we haven't communicated this out broadly to regular staff yet, because we're just implementing Canvas as an LMS, and we may end up using that as a communication tool and yada, yada, yada. But what's been interesting is there's been times when teachers will go there to Yammer and just post a question, say, I'm having this issue. And then Stephen or one of the subject matter experts might respond right away with a solution to that. And I've had teachers say to me, oh, Yammer's been so great. I posted a question, and it got right to the person who could answer it, and they answered it, and it was fantastic. My first thought was from this sort of traditional mentality of, oh, you probably should have put that in our help desk system. And then my second thought was, well, wait a second. I have to remind myself, what is the goal here? It's to quickly resolve issues for people. So we've been grappling with that, is what things need to go in our help desk system versus what things can go in Yammer or Google Hangouts or Slack or...
I think we have established in our school district that our goal is to resolve at the help desk level as many calls as we can, and it takes time sometimes to get to that level. But we have a tier system where it starts at the school with a teacher that gets a stipend, and then they communicate to whoever the staff is. And a little bit of training, and they try to answer some of the questions, and it moves up to with a ticket. To the help desk, so we can track it, so I don't get a teacher calling. It's been 3 days and no one has showed up here.
Right.
What's going on? Oh, let me see your ticket. Oh, you just put the ticket this morning. And so then it goes from the help desk to the field tech goes to systems analyst, and then to infrastructure.
Right.
So we have a tier system that ticket continues to be documented. I touched this computer, didn't do it. I'm moving up to the next person.
Right.
And so there is a little, it helps me for staffing at one point when I said, look at how many tickets, how many of this, I can turn around to the board and say, hey, I need 4 people or 3 more people.
Exactly, and our setup is similar to that, and we're sort of transitioning again. The CST position traditionally was not an IT position technically. It was a school position, and so they treated our help desk system as more as clients, really. So a teacher has a problem, they would call, email, post-it note, catch in the hallway the CST, not create a ticket, and then if the CST couldn't resolve it, they would create a ticket that would come to us. And we're probably looking at shifting that over time to saying, we want to make it easy for staff to create tickets. We want to encourage them to create tickets. It'll automatically go to your CST, and then you follow that escalation path from there that you've already been following, where it goes to field tech, to system admin, or whoever it might be. So another element is training. Kind of goes hand in hand with documentation, but we knew trying to train 19 people at the same time was going to be a different challenge than 1 or 2 at a time. So it was fortunate that we were able to get all of the 19 of them to come the first 2 days on the job and spend all of their time with us. So we did an orientation kind of style training, and like I said, we tried to flip it a little bit by having that website up, sending them a link before they come, saying read through all this section. And so we, I think, spent like 15 minutes at the front of that training saying, any questions about what your job is, what your hours are, all those kind of nuts and bolts things that you often spend half a day going through and whatever. So that proved to be, I think, helpful. After they did 2 days of orientation, we had them go out in small work teams to different schools and get introduced to the schools and do a lot of the hands-on stuff they had just been learning about. So we had Chromebooks that needed to be enrolled, iPads that needed to be enrolled, computers to be imaged, projectors set up, all those kinds of things. As well as it was kind of nice for them to get to know each other a bit throughout that time as well. And then did a summit where we had all of the new CSTs with all of the previously existing CSTs together in one spot to do some additional training on things that were new to everybody. Another thing that our system administrators, including Stephen over there, have been doing is hosting Friday webcasts where they're doing like WebEx style training type things where they'll pick a topic that they'll cover 10 minutes or so on. People can join if they're available, post questions, ask questions, interact in that way. And then we're archiving those and putting them up on the CST website for the people that couldn't join afterwards. So I think we've been doing that for a few months now, and that's definitely been well received by people. So interested to hear from you, how are your techs trained? Is it kind of on the job? Is it, well, and here's a poll here just to get a sort of a baseline. Is it in-house training that you're training them? Somebody else that's already in your organization is training them? Outside providers, learning on the job, or a mix? So nobody doing outside. Yeah, and I think that's fairly similar to what I think before. We were basically, it was kind of a learn on the job, and our field techs from IT would come out and pretty much show you what you needed to know to do your job. But interesting.
It really has changed a lot over the years when you might have had techs who actually serviced could tear down a printer or something and rebuild it, and it's just not economically feasible.
Right.
To do that, so you don't send them to those local training.
You're right. Yeah, they often it's just ship it back to the vendor, and yeah.
Andrew, do you have any kind of metrics in terms of those CSP positions that you guys set ahead of time in terms of how many tickets you were expecting them to try and resolve before they were escalated to the district level tech? I mean, I've seen job descriptions where they say 85% of tickets must be resolved in the building. That's what we're expecting
Right.
as an employee. I'm just curious if you guys
No, we didn't. And part of it's just that, again, our help desk usage was all across the board, and schools were doing things completely differently. And so we tried to make a push with our CSTs and with the principals to say, if they have issues, please create help desk tickets rather than post-it notes and whatever. But even that's been really hit and miss, depending on the school and depending on the CST really in their style, because I didn't want them giving the message of you need to create a ticket for things to override I'm here to help you, that message. And that's, for a few of them, has been, I think, a bit of a challenge. But yeah, we didn't.
Along the lines of metrics, you have a call center that keeps
Right.
the phone calls and who's coming, how long is the stay on hold, drop calls, and so on.
Right. And I haven't looked at our numbers in comparison to before. I've looked at our numbers period, and I've talked anecdotally to our help desk people, and they've said it's definitely decreased. This is, again, anecdotal, but it's dramatically decreased their amount of break-fix kinds of calls that they get. Yeah.
Do you document your stop in the hallways?
No. And that would be fascinating to see. Like I said, I think part of our goal for this summer is we're updating our help desk system, and we're trying to make it more user-friendly and quick, trying to really reduce the amount of stuff that the user has to do to create a ticket, make it really simple, get it right to the CST so that we can then, I think it'll be easier for us to sell the message to teachers to create a ticket, because before our system was pretty cumbersome, had lots of requirements of them and took a lot of time, and so people just didn't do it.
Yeah, and we have the same problem as, I get the pushback that it's too confusing for them to be able to create the ticket, so they see the ticket walking down the hallway, so they just...
Right. And that's our goal, at least my goal with it, and we'll see what ends up happening, is to make it as easy to create a help desk ticket as it would be to send an email. So.
I was tracking some stuff when I first set up help desk software, and the first year getting 4 or 5 tickets a month, input by someone else, by out in the field. When I enabled the ability for them to send an email, I'm getting probably 85% of the information coming in is coming in through the ticketing system because they can do it from the email.
Right.
And it's coming from their AD user email, so everything is easily to track.
Yeah, and we've enabled that feature too. We've struggled a little bit with the formatting piece of it, but yeah, that's a good selling point.
And we also do, all of our tech support help desk tickets come in via email. If you just send an email to helpdesk@whatever. What they seem to like about it from our old system is it sends it, automatically generates a ticket for us, and then sends in the response with the ticket number and kind of hear you, so they get some sort of feedback. But if you have to have email communication back and forth every time you communicate, because it has the ticket ID number and the subject line, it appends that info into the ticket, which helps us on our end. And super helpful.
Right. Yeah.
Do about supervision and evaluation.
Oh, we could spend a whole session on that. That's a huge challenge because so these new elementary positions report to me. Our secondary ones report to the schools. So for me, I have right now 11, will soon be 17 elementary CST positions who I see once or twice a month at meetings. So there's a heavy reliance on me getting feedback from our IT field techs. I ask the principals every time evaluation's coming up. I'll send them out a Google form version of our evaluation form, try to have conversations there, try to talk to some people at their schools. It's a huge challenge, definitely.
Have you implemented, I don't know if in your ticketing system, the capability to, when tickets are closed, to get customer feedback? Have you implemented any?
We haven't, no. That would be great, though. I'm a huge fan of feedback, so would love that.
I just have a comment for the people who are getting emails to the help desk. One of the things that we did a couple of years ago, district facilitators, in the training to teachers on how to use the ticketing system, they ask you to create a second signature on the Outlook, so when they submit a ticket, it has their name, phone number, planning period, room number, computer number, and kind of where they can be called and available, and the phone number for the classroom or a cell phone number.
That's huge. Having that, knowing how to contact them and when is huge.
Yeah, wait.
Oh.
Buy chips, please.
Yes. I like it. I like it.
What do you use for your ticketing system?
Web Help Desk by SolarWinds. So. And it works.
It works.
There's probably better out there.
There's holes in it, but it works.
Yeah.
Are you moving to a new tool?
We're still staying with Web Help Desk for now, but.
Do you have success with teachers responding because sometimes you want to ask additional information and do they get back?
That's a huge challenge, and especially when we've been doing it centrally. I think that's part of our thinking with having these CSTs there is if there is that follow-up information needed, it's going to be much easier for somebody physically in the building who it's good for them to go down and make face-to-face contact anyways to gather that.
Right.
So traditionally, yes. So another challenge for us has been communication, like we were talking about a little bit before. So as a group, as a tech support group, we have 51 schools. We now have people at all these different schools, plus us centrally, spread out over a large geographical area. It's hard for us to communicate with each other at times, or it was traditionally. I served in a role similar to this at one of our schools, and when I started, it took me 1.5 years before I even knew there was other people in other schools doing the same job as me. So in an effort to try to make that better, like I said earlier, we created a Yammer group this year in Office 365, created a closed private group for just our tech support people, both centrally and at schools. And we flipped that on and didn't really know if there was going to be much activity there. I sort of thought maybe it'll just be crickets and nobody will really use it. But it's been the exact opposite. As soon as we flipped it on, it was like the floodgates opened, and it's just a stream of questions, conversations, advice, all those kinds of things. And like I think you were saying, it's perfect for, yeah, you go to the website first and look for your documentation there. If it's not there, post it in Yammer. And like you said, one of the biggest selling points is before somebody in like Steven's position would get asked the same question, could get asked the same question by 5 different people through email, through text, whatever, answer it 5 separate times. Nobody else has access to see that. By doing that here, like you said, there's 25 other people out there that may know the answer that can post it. One challenge to that is they may think they know the answer and it's actually an incorrect answer, so sometimes we have to moderate a little bit, but definitely been a huge value add for us for that piece, internal communications. We've also, like we talked about earlier, wanting to improve in terms of communicating things to everybody out at the buildings. So when we're making changes to the Apple platform, to the Google platform, Windows, networking things, sys things, previously we weren't really doing a great job, I don't think, of communicating those things out there. So we've created Yammer groups for each of those topical areas. And again, the idea would be is if I'm a teacher managing a lab of Windows machines, I could go join this IT Windows Yammer group and see our sysadmin post when they're going to make changes to Windows. We then embedded all of those Yammer groups into a web page where you could go if you were just kind of interested in seeing any of the things, but maybe not necessarily joining the group to get notification types of things. So we talked a little bit about communication solutions. Culture then as one of the ingredients to trying to empower these people. So kind of speaks for itself, but I think the traditional stereotypical tech support cultural piece might be thought of by some people as being somebody who's sort of condescending, tend to be rude at times, talk above people's heads. I hear this from my mother all the time because of her tech support person. So I always kind of try to think, well, like when we were hiring, what would my mom's tech support person be like? Let's do the opposite of that. And that's kind of what we've tried to do when hiring our people. And I sounded like Peter Brady for a second. Could you stop the video and rewind it and let's edit that out? And maybe change it to like a Barry White style thing. But trying to find people and trying to cultivate a culture that's not the stereotypical tech support culture. So people that are communicating with each other, that are collaborating, that have the soft skills to work in a school environment. Because to me, of the people, the new people that we hired this year, the ones who have those soft skills, even if they were lacking in some of the technical skills, there haven't been issues with those people for the most part. It's the 1 or 2 people who are struggling a little bit with the soft skills that is where I'm spending the bulk of my time trying to work with them on.
Teach the technical skills.
Exactly. Yep. So when we were hiring, we were looking for the soft skills, sort of the personality fit in our team and in a school, and then sort of just a general problem-solving, troubleshooting aptitude along with the ability to learn. And that doesn't necessarily equate to I have 15 years of experience troubleshooting Windows machines or whatever that might be. Yes. Yep. All of our classified positions in the district are part of the union.
How many of the people you hired as CSTs had an education background?
Good question. So not many. We had 1 certified teacher who became one of these positions, which was a substantial pay cut. We had a few that were in classified positions that were classroom positions in labs that were sort of managing classroom labs, and the rest of them would have come from other fields. But definitely people who had been around education, some who came from other states and stuff in tech support roles. So now that I think about it, the majority of them had some experience in education previously. Yeah. Good question. Yeah.
Requirements of education and certification, do you have any for the CSP?
We do, and I'd have to look at the job description. I think it's only a 2-year degree or equivalent. It's fairly minimal. I don't think it required a bachelor's degree or an undergrad.
What about certification?
No certification requirements.
Really?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and this is, for us, we consider this an entry-level position. It doesn't pay as well as we would like it to pay at all. So we consider it entry level, and we're hoping to kind of build career pathing opportunities and stuff for them to grow. But yeah,
I'm assuming they're not year-round.
they're 210 days, which means they get a summer month off ish. So another thing we've tried to do to foster sort of a collaborative culture is I've done like an offsite retreat with them where we talked about communication skills and personality styles and things like that, and really made that an emphasis in our orientation, was them getting to know each other as people and talking about putting an emphasis on some of those things. Another cultural thing that we're trying to instill as tech support, to me, isn't always, I think it may not always be the most fun thing in the world, or that could be the tendency. It's a tough job where you're dealing with people's problems all the time. So trying to find ways to make things fun, try to do things that are fun. So coming from a music background, I have to find ways to excuses to try to impart my music stuff into things. So when we do these Friday webcasts, I had some free time on a weekend when we had a snow day, and made a little introduction for our Windows person. So here's a little introduction for his webcast. And if I did one for the Windows guy, then I have to do one for the Mac guy.
Sit back with your Mac, grab a snack, and Stevie Mac is gonna show you how to make it all work. Sit back with your Mac, grab a snack, and Stevie Mac is gonna show you how to make it all work. JSS and the Macs and the iPads and the stacks tell us how to make them work, Stevie Mac. TDP, Apple ID, BBP, they make us scream until you tell us how to use them, Stevie Mac. Configurator. No. Sit back with your Mac, grab a snack, and Stevie Mac is gonna show you how to make it all work.
So, yes. Thank you for the applause. That makes me feel a lot better about myself. I was sort of like, why am I showing these in the first place? The fact you applauded validated all of those. But again, I sort of feel like, again, we're dealing with people's problems all the time. That's a stressful, tough thing to do. So trying to find excuses to do things that are fun and out of the ordinary seem to be helpful.
We never get to hear from anybody when things are working okay.
It's true. Nobody calls and says, hey, just want to tell you everything's okay.
Never.
So I'm going to skip through that here real quick. One other element is instructional practice. So I'm sure most all of you are in the same spot that we're in, where education is changing, instructional practice is shifting. We're asking teachers to start shifting how they're doing things pedagogically. So we're looking at it as an opportunity for us to do the same thing. So in the past, maybe we've always brought people in and trained them in certain ways. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was the best way or that was working really well. So trying to find out from our instructional people what we could do to improve that, trying to reflect on that ourselves and ask for feedback after we do orientations and trainings, and finding out what worked well for you, what didn't work, what could we do better in the future. And it's been sort of a requirement for us, because previously we were the people that were doing all the hands-on work, and now that's shifted to where somebody like Stephen or John has gone from doing all the hands-on work to having to actually train other people to do some of the hands-on work so that they can focus on higher level things. So some of the things we've tried to do is that idea of flipping things when possible, so sending them out information in advance, and then coming and doing an open lab type thing, or answering questions or whatever that might be. Trying to make things interactive and hands-on when possible. Trying to get them collaborating and working together for things. Trying to find excuses to not do what I'm doing to you right now and doing the sit and get kind of a thing and making them sit there all day long watching us do things, but rather having them do it in a hands-on way and get up and move around when possible and break things up. So I've got about 10 minutes left, a few things to cover here, but any quick thoughts on how you have found solutions to connecting with your instructional folks, or what you're doing for training, connecting that to best practices instructionally?
Our instructional folks are kind of part of our technology team,
Okay.
the CIO, so we meet every week. We have offices side by side. We intermingle all the time. So really it's helped a lot to just have constant feedback loop.
Sure.
To just constant communication.
And you probably get the influences of both then going.
Sure.
They're hearing the tech issues, you're hearing the instructional stuff.
And we assist, they help with some of the tech stuff, we help with some of the instructional stuff as we're learning together.
Right.
So.
Cool. Good.
We just hired a COSA, who's going to be kind of a liaison between tech and instruction. It's new for us, it's going to be a new position, but I'm kind of liking the idea of having that person whose only job really is to do that, be that go-between.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps bring that educator, or help enlighten some of us who don't really think that much like an educator to,
Mm-hmm.
what's the real issue here? It's not that this is broken or that you can't get that speaker to work. What's the real underlying issue in terms of working in the classroom and providing this instruction? So
It'd be interesting to hear from them next year at the conference to find out how that's working.
Yeah.
So.
We have a TOSA, like I think we're hiring a second one very soon with that idea, and she's been very effective when she schedules certain days in buildings and announces it, and teachers can request to schedule time with her, and she sits down in their classroom and works on them, works with them for 45 minutes on something, and the teachers, they feel like they've gotten just golden treatment.
Nice. Sorry to cut you off really quick. I want to make sure that you're not late here because I know you want to get to the drone flying competition. So sorry to cut you off. We'll see if we have a little time at the end here. But and then one last piece, I think, to what we wanted to make sure that we were doing for these people is tying them to the sense of purpose. Kind of why are we there? I think, especially for positions like mine, the further you get removed from the classroom, the easier it is to sort of forget what it is that we're there for, how we're contributing to this mission. For me, it makes it a little easier because I do have a couple kids that go to the school district. So I need to remind myself at times, like I'm here to do things that are going to remove barriers for them to be able to explore and innovate and those kinds of things. So they can explore innovative ideas like my son's, which is I need roller skates. I don't have roller skates. What could I do to create roller skates? So what if I taped Hot Wheel cars to my feet? Which was a really interesting idea. I was really proud of him. He was excited until he got up and tried to use them and realized it was a very painful solution. So he iterated on that and quickly abandoned it. But and then we're looking at some of our schools have been doing some student tech support systems like some of you were talking about, and so we're looking to build that out a bit because it serves multiple purposes. It does help us a little bit, but also ties us to the students more closely and gives them an opportunity to get real-world experience and learn lots of valuable skills. And I'll skip that. So looking at our results from this year, which is almost done, so this is a small amount of sample size, but along with adding these CSTs, we've also made some other changes in our department to try to improve on our turnaround time for tickets and things like that. So in our help desk ticketing system, we found that this year relative to the 4 years prior to this, we're resolving tickets 2.5 times faster than we were before, which is good because the district has made a significant investment, obviously, in people for us, so we should be able to show some return on that. This is feedback from one of the CSTs who was new from this year, and they were saying things like the CST website has been very helpful for them as a place for information. Communication has been really effective and good. Yammer being a big part of why that communication was good, and that they've really appreciated the flow of information from people like Stephen, from our systems administrators, through Yammer, through the webcasts, all of those types of things. This is some of the new CSTs talking about the things that have led to them feeling like they've been successful this year.
CST website. Access to tools that allow me to manage the technology in my schools.
Yammer as a way of communicating with other CSTs or others in IT. Collaboration with other CSTs.
That wasn't scripted at all, by the way. It's totally spontaneous. Those were all of their words. We just scripted them out so they could say it in their words rather than ours. But and then some of the feedback we've gotten from the principals in the buildings. Not sure how we survived without this position in the building. The position is critical to our functioning and the functioning of all schools in the midst of a digital conversion. This one's my favorite, which is I admittedly didn't think we really needed this position prior to having it, and I was wrong. It's made such a difference, and love this position. So overwhelmingly, it's been very positive from all of the people in the buildings. Some of the challenges we've faced, hiring and retaining, again, we unfortunately can't offer the best salary for this position, so that's a challenge, and we're trying to find ways to provide growth opportunities for them within the department and district, and that tiered system that you were referring to is part of what we're continually working on to provide that. Changing positions equals different skills. So the people in our department, like I said, were the hands-on people before. Adding these positions has dramatically shifted all of our work. So those field techs we talked about before, our help desk, my position, Stephen's position, all these positions looks different. That's a challenge, that's change, and some of it's unknown. So we don't necessarily know what the vision is for those positions for 2 years from now, because it's kind of hard to project that because we've just added these and we're kind of having to learn as we go. So that's a challenge for people to say, what is my role in this? Like black and white, give me my box, what is that role? It's a challenge for people to deal with the fact that sometimes we don't necessarily know what that is right now. So communication and culture, I think, again, those are things that are just ongoing challenges. And time, like with everything, even though we've added positions, still a lack of time to build all of these systems and get them in place. I think once we get the system rolling in a couple of years, that will be less of an issue for us. So again, we've moved probably from somewhere in the below average range to a good range, hoping that if we presented it in a year or two from now, we could say that we're providing great tech support service. So we've got just a couple minutes, I think, left. Yes.
Are you a self-maintainer for any of the products that you support?
Apple, only Apple right now. We just have started with the big Acer Chromebook rollout, and so that's one option that's been presented to us, but we did buy an extended warranty, and their turnaround time right now is faster than our turnaround time would be.
On the other products, do you have any extended warranties?
We don't for just Apple mainly. So at this point it's just Apple. Yeah. So interested to hear from you guys. Any questions, thoughts you have, tech support in general? We've got about 3 minutes left, so yeah.
Back to the instruction, I know with our, like the teacher population, we have technical integration, tech talks, and a lot of different things to get out to teachers. What we're finding short is the classified staff, especially like going to operating new systems. Does anybody have a great training for how we do that?
Any thoughts from?
We're teaching in the fish, so we have an LMS. We use It's Learning, and so we're sending them, we're building the courses within our ed tech. Our ed tech group is small. We have 7, and 3 of them are Newtosis. But with those 7, we're building our coursework, and almost like in snack bites, kind of like Microsoft videos, FAQs, documents, and we do one initial training with them, and then we refer them back to those documents. It's during their time, so we don't do it after hours. So yeah, they're paid. So yeah.
And that's a great point because like I said, we're just going to Canvas here really soon, and that's what we're thinking. We're going to start doing for everything that we can do, which is any training, let's just put it all in the LMS, give our teachers and our classified staff and whoever the same experience that the students are going to be going through. So one last thing I wanted to get from you guys is any thoughts that you came away with from hearing from each other, from some of the things we're doing, any takeaways, any things you could use in your district. Yeah, and again, that comes down to money. And for us, it was kind of I think it was a result of a perfect storm of we're getting all of this new stuff. We could throw out these numbers and say we're getting, I think it was 27,000 new devices in this year. And they had seen this small centralized staff, killing themselves for years and years. And so it was like this perfect, we're getting all this stuff. We know these people are over their heads. We need to invest in this. Social media style communication, that was huge for us. It's been huge. Make it fun. Communication to all stakeholders is vital. That I would love if there were a session on that here would be, to me, fantastic. It's just how do you communicate as a department out to your end users? WebEx Friday trainings. Cool. And Stephen could probably really quickly say, the weekly webcast, that's also a time commitment for them. So you're taking these technical staff and saying, plan this. Have you found that to be a significant time investment?
Yeah, and it's really only about 15 minutes. Typical sessions only last about 15 minutes. And on Yammer, you can do a poll. And so a lot of the times I'll throw out some topic ideas and see where the interest is instead of me just picking some random topic that they may not be interested in. And that's been really helpful. Mostly been revolving around iPads right now. A lot of questions about that. But no, it's definitely worth it. And a lot of them go back to the CST website later and watch them. It's 2 o'clock on a Friday may not fit in everyone's schedule. So they can always watch it later.
Right. And soft skills, yeah, I just feel like you hear that from the educational folks all the time, right, is that we're seeing the importance of that in every industry, so. Yeah.
Do you have a written SLA?
We don't, no. We've traditionally been very informalized in most everything we've done. We're starting to try to find the balance that it's been referred to a few times.
Is there any talk of having one?
So we've talked about saying we'd like to have a 24-hour turnaround time for first response kind of thing. We're close to that at this point. We have not formalized that, but that's probably something that will be coming. So, well, thank you guys for your time and for contributing.
Nice job.
Oh, thanks.
Great Inglesby with Portland.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Name,
Yeah.
So.
You too. What is your role there?
Well, I oversee the service desk.
Oh,
We're
nice.
going through a lot of this kind of work, and we actually are bringing in fruition partners, consultants to help us with our service management improvement.
Okay.
So we're going to start pretty soon, and
that'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, just to kind of see. We thought, let's just look at what we're doing because we just brought our 10 high school site techs under IT.
Oh, okay.
And
that's a big shift for you guys, right?
It's a big shift, and we don't have anybody in the elementary, middle.
Right. Are you guys moving towards? You guys have traditionally been very much site-based, right? Like schools do things very differently. Are you making a shift to try to?
Yes. Yeah. IT-wise, I mean, we've probably pretty much still have that control over things. I mean, the imaging, everything's all done centrally.
Okay.
And the device configuration and receiving. So yeah, we're just trying to figure out what is that right next.
Right.
And I was wondering if you staff up at the start of the school year. Do you add more people?
Yeah.
In your desk and then?
No. And I've been thinking a lot about that. Now that we've added these positions, it should free up some other people to maybe do some things like that and have the flexibility to do those things. Oh. What do I do? Do I just smash this to?
We're all.
Oh, there we go. Is it?
How many people?